The wind tore across the icy plateau like a living thing, biting through Caleb Rourke's heavy suit and rattling his teeth. Snow whipped in blinding sheets, and each step was a battle against the shifting drifts. His scanner had gone haywire minutes ago, and all he could rely on now was instinct. That's when he saw it, a massive shape half buried in ice, frozen like a sculpture, but not motionless. A faint glow pulsed from within, weak but alive. Caleb's heart jumped. He crouched low, peering through the storm. The creature's eyes were closed, but a thin, shivering sound echoed faintly, a whimper that sounded almost like a human child's. He hadn't expected to find anything alive out here. No colony, no research team, nothing. Just him, the wind, and this strange frozen life. He ran forward, kicking through snow drifts, ignoring the risk of frostbite. Each step brought him closer, and his breath came in short, ragged gasps. His gloved hands pressed against the ice shell, and he immediately realized the danger. The ice wasn't solid. Tiny cracks ran along its surface, almost like veins spreading in unnatural patterns. One wrong touch could shatter it, or worse. "Hey, hey," he whispered, voice cracking in the roar of the storm. "I'm here. You're not alone." A sudden shiver ran through the ice, startling him. He jumped back as a chunk of frost fell, revealing a claw, pale and delicate, trembling. Caleb's stomach sank. It was alive. Somehow it was still alive. He pressed closer, scanning for life signs. Heartbeats, or something like them, pulsed in the faint glow. Without hesitation, he pulled a small cutting tool from his pack and began chipping at the ice, slow and careful. Each strike sent tiny shards scattering, some sharp enough to pierce even his thick gloves. His mind raced. If he hesitated, the storm could freeze the creature completely, and it might never wake. The risk was high, one slip and he could injure it or himself. A sudden crack ran through the ice, louder than the storm itself. Caleb froze. The creature stirred slightly, a wing twitching, scales brushing against the jagged walls of its frozen tomb. Its eyes flickered open, faint slits glowing golden, and for a heartbeat, the world went silent in his mind. There was intelligence there, curiosity, fear, recognition, and a spark of desperation. Caleb swallowed hard and whispered, "You're safe. I won't leave you." The wind shifted violently, gusting like a hammer. Snow tore across his face, and ice spikes formed around the creature in ways he hadn't expected. They weren't ordinary frost, they moved subtly as if alive. One arced toward him and he ducked instinctively. His scanner beeped furiously, unable to make sense of the readings. This ice wasn't just cold, it was reacting. Responding. Almost defensive. He realized the stakes had doubled. Saving the creature wasn't just about warming it. Something here wanted him gone, or worse. Caleb tightened his grip on the tool and glanced at the dragon-like figure. Its wings still trapped, flexed, and a low, mournful sound echoed again. His chest tightened. The sound was both a plea and a warning. "This isn't going to be easy," he muttered, teeth chattering. "But I can't leave you like this." He started chiseling again, moving cautiously, methodically. Each hit brought a faint pulse from the creature, like it was responding to him. Shards of ice fell away, revealing scales glinting beneath the frost, alien in color, shimmering with hints of green and violet. He had never seen anything like it, not in any catalog or simulation. This was extraordinary, and vulnerable. Suddenly, a loud snap echoed from the ice above. Caleb instinctively grabbed the creature's wing to stabilize it as a chunk of jagged frost crashed down. His arms burned from the cold, fingers numbing, but he held firm. A small smile crept across his face despite the danger. One section of the ice was clear, just enough for the creature to move a little, to breathe without the weight of the storm pressing it down. It stirred, lifting its head weakly, golden eyes locking onto his. A shiver ran through Caleb, a mix of fear and awe. Here was something completely alien, teetering on the edge of death, and yet, somehow, it recognized him as a savior. The warmth of that connection pushed him forward, even as the wind howled like a predator. Then the ground beneath them cracked with an unnatural groan. Caleb froze, the pulse from the creature flickering in response. The ice wasn't stable, far from it. And the storm wasn't just weather. It was as if the plateau itself had secrets, moving with its own will. His mind raced. If the ice broke now, both he and the creature could be buried instantly. He gritted his teeth and whispered, more to himself than anyone, "We survive, together." And then, from somewhere deep inside the frozen mass, the creature emitted a sharp, piercing cry, a sound that made Caleb stumble back. It wasn't just fear. It was anger, pain, and warning all at once. And in that moment, A jagged spike of ice shifted violently, pointing directly at him, as if the storm itself had decided it was watching. Caleb's eyes widened. The creature's survival depended on him, and now the ice had turned into another enemy. He gripped his tool tighter. The wind roared louder. The faint golden eyes stared at him, unblinking. Something had begun to move under the frost, and it was bigger than he expected. The wind howled like a beast in rage, but Caleb refused to step back. Each gust threatened to topple him, and the jagged ice spikes around the dragon shifted with terrifying speed. They weren't just frozen spikes, they moved on their own, twisting, stretching, almost hunting. Caleb's heart raced, but his mind sharpened. Panic would get him killed. Every action had to count. He pressed his back against a large ice shard for support, breathing heavily, scanning the creature's form. Its wings were partially free now, trembling beneath frost, and the faint pulse from its glowing veins flickered in time with his own heartbeat. Caleb could feel it. This creature had survived something unimaginable, and now its survival depended entirely on him. A sudden gust slammed against his side, nearly knocking him into the jagged spikes. One shard wobbled and fell perilously close, landing with a deafening crack. Caleb's fingers tightened around his tool. If I lose focus for even a second, he thought, the idea of failure burning into his chest. He made a decision. Retreating was no longer an option. The storm wasn't just a challenge, it was a threat to life. The ice spikes weren't natural, they reacted to movement. Every careful strike, every push or tug could provoke them. But leaving the creature here meant almost certain death. Caleb's jaw set. I'm staying. No matter what, he muttered. His words were a promise and a warning, to the storm, to the ice, to whatever had trapped this alien being. He began carving a small protective shelter with what little gear he had. A collapsible shield, a heat generator, and spare panels from his hover pack became a makeshift barrier around the dragon. The ice spikes recoiled slightly as if sensing his interference, but they didn't retreat entirely. Caleb's stomach knotted, realizing these weren't passive defenses. They were watching him, learning, testing. Every strike of his tool made the dragon shiver. It wasn't just cold anymore, it was exhausted. Caleb knelt beside it, pressing a gloved hand to its chest. The faint glow from its scales pulsed stronger at the touch, as if reacting to warmth, to life. You're stronger than this, he whispered, though doubt crept in. How long could it hold on? How long could he fight the storm and the living ice? A sudden tremor ran through the ground. Caleb froze. The plateau wasn't stable. Snow cracked in long, jagged lines beneath them, and for a moment, he imagined the dragon slipping into a frozen abyss. He grabbed its wing, steadying it, and for the first time the dragon responded. Its head lifted slightly, golden eyes locking on his. They weren't just staring, they were pleading. Do not leave me. The first mini payoff hit Caleb then. He saw a tiny movement. A crack in the ice barrier around the dragon widened enough for it to flex its leg. Small, fragile, but it was progress. Oh. He allowed himself a brief exhale, heart still pounding, mind still calculating. Every small step mattered. Every tiny survival beat counted. But the storm had other plans. A cluster of ice spikes twisted violently toward him, sharper than before. Caleb ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding a lethal strike. The spikes sank into the snow with a loud crunch, and he realized that the ice had memory. It remembered his moves, adjusted to them. This was no ordinary frozen trap. This was alive. Something had designed it. Or perhaps it had evolved to protect the creature. He gritted his teeth and pressed forward. The dragon's wing was almost free now, but every action provoked more spikes. Sweat, or the condensation from his breath, froze on his visor. His fingers burned, but he refused to let go. He whispered again, this time almost begging, "Hold on. Just a little more. You can make it." Then a flash of movement caught his eye. Another creature, or maybe a smaller offshoot of the ice itself, slid from the plateau's edge. Tiny, fast, almost serpentine, it lunged toward the dragon. Caleb reacted instantly, swinging his tool and striking a calculated blow. The little creature recoiled, retreating into the storm, leaving the dragon unharmed. A surge of relief hit him, but only briefly. What else is out there? Caleb realized the stakes had multiplied. It wasn't just about freeing the dragon from ice, it was about surviving a predator that could be anywhere in the storm. He adjusted the heat generator closer to the creature, melting the frost enough to relieve pressure on its wings without provoking the spikes further. It was delicate, precise work. A mistake could end them both. Another mini payoff. The dragon's chest rose and fell more steadily. Its head tilted toward him, a faint sound of recognition escaping its throat. Caleb's heart soared. The creature understood his help, maybe even trusted him. But before he could smile, the plateau trembled violently again. A massive crack split beneath them, running like a lightning bolt through the ice. Caleb grabbed the dragon, pulling it back. Snow and shards rained down, striking their makeshift shelter. His mind raced. Every second mattered. The creature could die, the ice could crush them, or the storm could sweep them away. Yet he couldn't retreat. He wouldn't retreat. That was the human choice. Courage when everything screams to run. Compassion when every instinct screams self-preservation. Determination when odds are impossible. Then, as he stabilized the dragon, a new horror appeared. The ice spike nearest him twisted violently and shot upward, sharper and faster than anything before. Caleb barely had time to jump. He rolled across the snow and landed hard, chest aching, gloves torn. The spike embedded itself in the ground where he had stood, a silent warning. The creature quivered beside him, glowing brighter, its eyes wide. It seemed to understand the danger, but it didn't retreat either. Caleb's chest heaved as he looked at the dragon. "We'll survive this. I promise," he said, voice raw, teeth chattering. And then the plateau beneath them groaned again, louder this time, unnatural, like metal cracking, not ice. Something massive was moving under the frozen surface, something that had been lying in wait. The golden eyes of the dragon locked on him, glowing fiercely now. Caleb felt it, not just awareness but intent. They were no longer just fighting the storm or the ice. Something else had awakened. Something big. Something alive. And in that moment he knew the next step could either save them, or end everything. The ground beneath Caleb trembled again, more violently this time, as if the plateau itself had awakened. He gritted his teeth, bracing against the icy slope, while the dragon, half frozen, half flickering with life, huddled close. Its golden eyes never left him, wide with awareness, flickering with confusion and pain. Caleb realized they weren't just trapped in a storm anymore. Something beneath the ice was moving, something enormous, something intelligent. He scanned the surrounding ice with his visor's thermal overlay, trying to map out the source of the movement. The heat patterns were unlike anything he'd seen. Beneath the frozen plateau, glowing veins pulsed rhythmically, echoing the dragon's own faint heartbeat. Caleb's stomach twisted. The ice and the dragon, they're connected. Every instinct screamed that disturbing the dragon further could trigger the unknown force beneath them. He crouched, pressing his palm against the creature's wing. It twitched, weak but alive, responding to warmth. "I need to know what we're dealing with," he whispered. "Hold still. I'm not leaving you." He reached into his pack, retrieving a small multi-sensor probe. This was risky. Any sudden noise or vibration might provoke the ice spikes or wake whatever lurked below, but knowledge was survival. Caleb lowered the probe near the edge of a jagged crack in the ice. A soft hum rose, almost musical, resonating through the frozen veins beneath. The dragon stirred, its head tilting, eyes locking on the probe. Golden light flickered in its chest, pulsing faster. Caleb froze. It was responding. Not out of fear but recognition. Intelligence. Then the unexpected happened. The ice around the dragon shifted violently, sharper than before. The spikes twisted toward him like living snakes. He barely ducked, the probe clanging against the ice. Sparks flew as metal scraped against frozen crystal. The dragon's low cry echoed through the storm, a sound that mixed fear, warning, and something else, pleading. Caleb's mind raced. The ice isn't attacking randomly. It's defending, or communicating. The realization hit him like a shockwave. The dragon and the ice weren't separate. The ice was part of it, part of a symbiotic organism. Something ancient, intelligent, and capable of responding to threats. Every move he made caused reactions. Every breath of warmth or pressure was being read, analyzed, challenged. He had to act carefully. One wrong strike and the creature could die, or worse, awaken the force beneath. Caleb adjusted his strategy, moving slowly, deliberately, while keeping constant physical contact with the dragon. He pressed heat against its frozen limbs, melting just enough to allow small movements without provoking the spikes. The dragon flexed its wings tentatively, a golden glow flaring with every pulse of warmth. Then came the first shock. A crack split the ice near his feet, wider than before, revealing a faint, translucent outline beneath the surface. Caleb's eyes widened. Something enormous was trapped below, embedded in the frozen plateau. Tentacles of crystalline ice twisted around the dark shape, pulsing in time with the dragon's heartbeat. It was alive, massive, and seemingly dormant, but clearly aware of them. Caleb's heart hammered. This is bigger than we thought. Every previous risk now seemed tiny. This creature, or entity, was ancient, alien, and powerful. And it was bound, like the dragon, to the ice. He realized why the ice spikes had reacted. They weren't just defensive mechanisms, they were extensions of this entity protecting the dragon and possibly itself. A sharp tremor nearly knocked him over. The dragon emitted a loud, piercing cry, more forceful than before, eyes blazing. Caleb grabbed it, steadying both of them. The warmth from his body caused the golden glow in its chest to surge. Then the unthinkable happened. The dragon's wing extended fully, free from ice, and it reached toward the crack below. Golden energy flared from its veins, brushing against the translucent outline beneath. The entity moved in response. A ripple of energy shot through the ice spikes, jerking them violently toward Caleb. He tumbled back, slamming against the frozen ground, breath knocked out. Sparks flew from his tool as he barely deflected a spike aimed straight at his head. The storm itself seemed to pause as if watching. The creature below had awakened. Caleb's mind raced. We have one chance. One move to survive this. He leapt forward, pressing his palm again against the dragon's chest. The warmth surged through its veins, the golden glow brightened dramatically. The dragon shivered violently, wings beating slowly, shaking the ice spikes off the plateau. The entity beneath responded. The pulsating outline sank slightly, retreating, but the spikes twisted faster, angrier. Then came clarity. The ice, the dragon, the entity below, they weren't enemies. They were linked, a chain of life reacting to harm and protection alike. Caleb understood. If he could show intent, control his actions carefully, and remain compassionate, he could stabilize the situation. Every small movement mattered. Every act of courage could tip the balance. He pressed forward, carefully cutting a channel in the ice to relieve pressure, guiding the dragon's wing to extend fully. The entity beneath pulsed in acknowledgement, and the spikes momentarily stilled, giving him a brief window. The dragon's cry softened into a low hum, a sound that resonated through Caleb's chest. He had earned its trust. But the plateau trembled again, harder, sharper. A massive spike, larger than any before, shot up like a spear. Caleb barely dodged, rolling across the snow as pieces of ice shattered around him. The dragon flapped its freed wing, striking the spike midair, shattering it. Caleb stared, breathless. It understands me. We're a team. The small payoff was clear: progress. The dragon was partially freed, the ice spikes temporarily subdued, and the massive entity below had not attacked. Yet the revelation had escalated everything. The plateau hid secrets far beyond his imagination. The dragon was not just a survivor, it was connected to something enormous, ancient, and aware. Caleb clenched his fists, freezing despite the heat of his suit. We're not out of danger. Not by far. But he would not step back. He would not abandon the dragon. Courage, intelligence, and compassion. This was the human choice, and it was the only path forward. And then, from the depths below, the entity moved again, sharper, faster this time, sending tremors up the ice wall. Caleb froze. Something massive was awakening. And this time it wasn't just aware, they had been noticed. The tremors shook Caleb to his core, rattling snow and ice from every jagged peak. His visor fogged with frost, each breath a struggle, but he didn't falter. The dragon, now mostly free from its icy prison, flexed wings that glinted with golden light. Its eyes were wide, alert, and intelligent. Whatever lay beneath the frozen plateau had fully awakened, and its energy pulsed through the ice spikes like a warning and a threat. Caleb scanned the jagged ice surrounding them. The spikes were alive, twisting and striking at random, but now with precision. One shot upward, mere inches from his head, sending a sharp shard clattering against the frozen ground. He ducked instinctively, heart hammering. They're learning. They're adapting. There was no time to hesitate. He pulled the dragon closer, placing his gloved hand on its chest. The golden glow flared brighter, stronger. The dragon trembled as if absorbing his warmth and intent. Caleb realized that connection was their only advantage. They could fight this together, or they would be destroyed. A massive crack split the plateau in front of them. Ice surged upward like jagged towers, spikes twisting violently. From below, the pulsing entity thrummed with life, sending vibrations through the ground. Caleb staggered back, recalculating. Every strike he made at the ice sent reverberations upward, awakening parts of the entity. It was enormous, far larger than he had imagined. And every move they made was being felt. Caleb's mind raced. He had only one option: precision and improvisation. He scavenged pieces from his pack: heat panels, a portable power cell, and a small cutting tool. He arranged the panels around the dragon, forming a temporary channel for energy and warmth. The goal was to stabilize its wings while melting key sections of the ice without triggering a full-scale collapse. It was risky. Every second counted. The entity beneath responded immediately. Ice spikes shot upward, sharper, faster, striking the panels and splintering some into shards. Caleb flinched as one shard skittered past, barely missing him. The dragon let out a low roar, wings flaring, deflecting 2 spikes with a sweep of golden energy. Caleb realized something incredible. The dragon wasn't just passive, it could fight. And it was choosing to protect him. A sudden surge from the entity shook the plateau violently. Caleb fell to one knee, clutching the dragon's wing. Snow cascaded down, shards raining like jagged knives. The dragon's glow pulsed in reaction, sending shockwaves through the ice spikes, momentarily knocking them back. Caleb's heart leapt. It's working. We can do this. He scrambled forward, cutting through a thick layer of ice that encased one of the dragon's legs. Sparks flew as his tool met the frozen crystalline veins. The dragon whimpered but remained still, golden eyes locking on him. The connection was stronger now. He could feel its trust, its desperation, its willingness to fight. He whispered, "Almost there. Hold on." The entity below reacted again, violently this time. A massive spike, larger than any before, shot upward with deadly speed. Caleb dove to the side, but the force of the spike crushed part of his heat panels. Shards flew toward the dragon. Without thinking, Caleb lunged, using his body to shield its chest. Pain shot through his arm as a shard grazed him, but the dragon flapped its wings, creating a gust that blew the spike away. Caleb's blood pounded. He realized the truth. Their survival depended on mutual courage. If he faltered, it could die. If it faltered, he could die. They were bound not just by chance but by necessity. He focused all his strength, repositioning the panels to create a temporary heat channel. The dragon's golden glow surged, melting the ice around its wings, freeing them fully. The massive entity below let out a deep, resonant hum. The ground vibrated violently, ice spikes striking randomly, some embedded dangerously close to both of them. Caleb gritted his teeth. He had to take one final daring move. He activated a makeshift power pulse through the panels, directing warmth into the ice veins connecting the dragon to the plateau. Energy surged through the dragon, its roar echoing across the storm. Ice spikes around them shattered violently, some collapsing harmlessly into the snow, others twisting upward in retreat. The plateau trembled as the entity below withdrew slightly, its pulses calming in response to the dragon's newfound strength. Caleb stumbled back, exhausted but alive. The dragon flexed its wings, stretching fully free of ice. Golden light flared across its body, illuminating the storm and reflecting in Caleb's wide, awestruck eyes. For the first time since they arrived, the plateau was quiet except for the wind. The entity below had not attacked. It had acknowledged them. They had survived. Caleb sank to one knee, chest heaving, frost clinging to his suit. The dragon lowered its massive head, nuzzling him gently. He pressed his gloved hand against its warm, pulsing chest. Relief washed over him, tempered by exhaustion. We did it. Together. But the plateau wasn't entirely calm. The ice spikes had receded, but faint pulses continued beneath the surface. The golden veins in the dragon's body pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat echoing into the frozen earth. Caleb realized the entity below was still there, still aware and still massive. A sudden shimmer in the ice caught his eye. Something moved beneath the surface, faint but unmistakable, a shadow larger than the dragon, stretching across the plateau like a living wave. Caleb's heart skipped a beat. The entity below was far from dormant. They had survived this wave, but it was clear there was more to the plateau, more to the creature, more to the mysteries that lay frozen just beneath. The dragon's golden eyes met his. Caleb understood. This was not the end. They had won this battle, but the war for survival, understanding, and trust was just beginning. And somewhere deep beneath the ice, the entity watched, waiting for the next move. Caleb whispered, voice raw, teeth chattering, "We're not done yet. I'll face whatever comes next, and you're not alone." The dragon let out a low, resonant hum, wings spreading against the storm. Then, as if in answer, the ice below pulsed once more, sharply, sending a wave of vibrations through the plateau. Caleb's visor flickered. Something massive was shifting. Something enormous and intelligent. And this time there was no mistaking it, they had been noticed. The wind had calmed, though the plateau still trembled faintly beneath Caleb's boots. Snow swirled around them in a gentle blur, glittering in the golden glow radiating from the dragon. It was alive, free from the icy prison, wings fully extended, yet Caleb could feel the weight of the massive entity beneath them, patient, intelligent, and watching. He crouched beside the dragon, pressing a hand to its warm, shimmering chest. The golden light pulsed under his glove, syncing with his heartbeat. "You're safe," he whispered, voice hoarse from cold and exhaustion. "I won't leave you." The dragon's eyes blinked slowly as if understanding, a flicker of trust and gratitude shining through. For a long moment, neither moved. Caleb surveyed the plateau. The ice spikes had receded, forming jagged, harmless shards scattered across the snow. The storm had retreated, leaving silence and frost. Yet beneath his feet, faint pulses continued, a reminder that the enormous entity still lingered, dormant but alive. It wasn't a threat, not anymore, but its presence carried a weight that pressed against his chest. Caleb took a deep breath. We did it. They had survived impossible odds. Frozen wings, living ice, the storm, the massive entity beneath the surface. Every instinct, every careful decision, every act of courage had mattered. The dragon flexed its wings experimentally, golden light flaring brighter, and Caleb realized something profound. They had saved more than a life, they had saved hope. The first micro payoff came quietly. The dragon leaned toward him, brushing its head against his shoulder, a gesture of trust and gratitude. Caleb smiled despite the cold, pressing his forehead against the creature's warm scales. "I'm here," he murmured. "I'm not leaving." The glow in the dragon's chest pulsed faster, almost like laughter, like relief, like a shared heartbeat between two unlikely allies. He stood slowly, brushing snow from his suit, keeping one hand on the dragon. His mind wandered to the entity beneath the plateau. It's alive, aware, connected. But there was no hostility now. It seemed content to remain below, perhaps acknowledging them, perhaps watching. Either way, it would not attack. Their courage, compassion, and careful strategy had earned them this fragile peace. Caleb's gaze swept the frozen landscape. The plateau stretched endlessly, jagged peaks glinting in sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The dragon flapped its wings experimentally, lifting slightly before settling. He could feel power radiating through it, energy he had never imagined possible. A creature of legend, alive and trusting me. His chest swelled with awe and humility. He knelt again, this time fully embracing the moment. "You're more than a survivor," he said softly. "You're stronger than the ice, stronger than the storm, stronger than whatever lies beneath." The dragon's eyes gleamed, almost understanding each word. Caleb felt an undeniable connection forming, a bond forged in danger, trust, and unwavering courage. A sudden ripple passed through the plateau, a gentle pulse from the entity below. The dragon stirred but did not panic. Caleb understood. The being below was acknowledging their victory, perhaps even offering approval. The massive force that had once threatened them now lay dormant, respectful of the courage that had guided them. They had proven themselves. The small payoff was tangible. The dragon was free. The ice no longer constrained it. Caleb's hands were numb, but the warmth of the dragon's chest radiated into him. Together they had faced impossible odds and survived. The plateau had tested them, pushed them to the brink, but human ingenuity, determination, and compassion had prevailed. Caleb took a step back, letting the dragon spread its wings fully. The golden glow shimmered across the snow, reflecting into the sky like a beacon. He realized the plateau would never feel ordinary again. They had left a mark, and the dragon would remember him as would the entity below. This was not just survival, it was recognition, an unspoken bond between human and alien life. Yet even in triumph there was a subtle tension. The dragon's golden eyes flicked toward the horizon, ears tilted, nostrils flaring. Caleb followed its gaze and saw it, a distant shimmer moving across the plateau, unnatural and deliberate. Something else stirred, another secret hidden within this frozen world, waiting to be discovered. He smiled faintly, a thrill running through him. This isn't the end. Their victory was real, but the plateau still held mysteries, dangers, and adventures that neither of them could ignore. He brushed snow from his gloves, adjusting his suit, and whispered, "We face it together. Whatever comes next." The dragon emitted a low, resonant hum, wings stretching once more in agreement. Caleb turned, eyes scanning the horizon. The plateau lay quiet, but the promise of more challenges pulsed beneath the snow. He knew that human courage, intelligence, and compassion had earned them survival, trust, and a fragile peace. But the universe rarely gave quiet for long. For now, the dragon was free, the ice had receded, and the entity below remained dormant. The small payoffs, the freed wings, the creature's trust, the temporary calm, were tangible victories in a world that had tested them to the limit. But the subtle pulses beneath the plateau reminded him that the adventure was far from over. He pressed a hand against the dragon's chest one last time. "We've made it this far," he said softly. "And we'll go further." The dragon leaned into his touch, golden light pulsing warmly, a living heartbeat of trust and alliance. Caleb felt the weight of what they had survived, and yet excitement ran through him. The plateau still had stories to tell. As he stood, the dragon flexed its wings, snow cascading off the edges and lifted slightly off the ground. Caleb followed, climbing to higher ground beside it. The frozen landscape stretched endlessly, the horizon tinged with sunlight. And beneath the ice, the massive entity pulsed once more, silent but aware. A subtle, almost teasing vibration ran through the ground, hinting at deeper secrets hidden in the plateau. Caleb's eyes narrowed. This is only the beginning. He grinned faintly, feeling the thrill of human courage and resilience, and the unbreakable bond he had forged with the alien dragon. Together they would face whatever mysteries, dangers, or wonders awaited next. The golden glow of the dragon lit the plateau, a signal to the universe. Humans endure, adapt, and shine, even against impossible odds. And somewhere beneath the ice, something massive stirred, watching, waiting, and perhaps preparing to test them again.